We talk so often here on the show about getting to retirement and through retirement, and we mentioned beyond retirement, what that entails. We're actually going to get into further detail on that here on this episode of Aspire to Retire with Ralph Short, Tim Short, and Scott Earhart of Welcome Home Financial Partners. We appreciate you joining us today. Go to welcomehomefp.com, find out more about the guys, their First Friday events, set up a time to speak with them. It all starts with reaching out. Again, we made it real easy for you. It's right there in the podcast description. Click the link. It'll take you right to welcomehomefp.com. My name is Chris Swan, and I am pleased to be joined, as always, by Ralph Short, Tim Short, and Scott Earhart. Gentlemen, glad to be with you. How are you?
Good. How are you, man? How are you?
Doing really well. Now, I want to talk about the beyond part of retirement, what that looks like, because there was a recent article or advice column on marketwatch.com. A couple wrote in saying they're retired. They have $4.5 million. They want to make an estate plan, but a little bit of self-awareness here, or awareness of their kids, because the kids are terrible with money. The advice they received was to spread the inheritance out, give out 20% at death, another 50% 5 years later, and the remaining at 10 years. What do you think of this advice? Is this good advice? And what goes into the estate planning process?
It's not. Everything's personalized to the individual and the individual family, and the initial owner of the money, their wants, desires, how they want to distribute it. So if that 20-50% works out for them and the way they want it structured, that's fine advice, but it's got to work for you. Now, the thing I would ask is, for that couple, what did they do to actually make that happen? When we die, if I say I want to leave Ralph X amount today, X amount in 5 years, and X amount in 20 years, just because I say that doesn't mean it's going to happen. There has to be documentation. I can't wish that to happen. I could tell Ralph this is what I want to have happen, but if I don't put the documentation in place to make that happen legally, then Ralph has the right to just do whatever the heck he wants. So my question to that couple is, okay, that works for you. You're okay with that. What are we going to do to ensure it happens the way you want it to happen?
The other thing I would say is that might be good advice, but my main concern is, okay, where are your assets? Are they qualified money? Is it non-qualified money? You may not have a choice in some of this because if it is qualified retirement money, the government's going to step in and say, particularly under the current status, is you're going to have to decide if you want to roll that money over to them in an inherited IRA standpoint, that they've got 10 years to get rid of it, or it's going to be penalized. So under current tax laws. But I mean, those are questions, you sit there and read that on the offset, that sounds fairly good, but you need to get back to, where's your money? Is it business that you just sold? Is it rental income that you just sold all that property? Or is it your IRA or your 401k? Those are things that you need to sit down with somebody that understands all that and can say, all right, if you have all your money in a retirement plan, this is what's going to happen. But if you got it split up between qualified and non-qualified, then there's different things that you have to do.
Yeah, and a lot of those rules have changed as of late, and it's very important for beneficiaries to, get the proper advice. We had a client pass away, I think it was before COVID. He left his 3 kids a little over $1 million. The oldest one already had an advisor, so they said that they wanted to run everything through him. Well, then little did they know that the advisor didn't talk about the taxes. It was all qualified money, and they cashed it out. So they got hit pretty hard with some tax bills the year after that. So that's the important conversation. Some people want to have some sort of restriction as far as, hey, I want my kids to get X amount of dollars at this age or that age. It's all about that individual, but it's a very important conversation to have.
And with the changes that we've been talking about, the Secure Act changes, I saw that we finally got clarification on the 10-year rule the other day. It's been gray area, but I was reading through it, and this scenario that we're talking about that was laid out wouldn't actually apply, because they are going to enforce distributions over the 10-year period. And then at the 10th year, it has to be fully distributed. So again, to Ralph's point of type of money, if you were thinking you can leave an IRA or a 401k to your kids and they can touch it in 15 years, you better come see us. Let us show you what it's actually going to look like and how we might be able to help you get closer to your goal of staggered distribution.
And another thing I would say to people, in this situation is, $4.5 million is a lot of money to most people. And this is a plan that you just don't do overnight. It's going to take you several months, maybe even years, to kind of iron out all the things out that you want, because guess what? You have to have a goal in mind, not your lawyer that is doing the plan, but your plan. What is it that you want to do? And the other thing is, you don't want to be set in stone so bad that you can't utilize it in case something that happens to you that you may need it.
That's right.
Because all of a sudden, let's put it this way. If something happens to one of your children and they lose their job and they have to come move back in with you, now you've got a situation. Now, do you give them a certain amount of money? How's that going to affect the other kids that you might have? How's that going to, as far as demographics within that family dynamics? Because at that point in time, if everybody gets, say you got 3 kids, you want everybody to have a third, but you gave $100,000 as one to help them out. You didn't give it to the other 2. How's that going to affect it? I mean, there's a lot of family dynamics when it comes to money. Money, it's not the root of all evil, but I can tell you one thing, it does affect family dynamics when it comes to money management.
And I think the biggest thing with the estate plan is it gives peace of mind. And that's what you want. If you were fortunate enough to save up $4.5 million, I think you want to have some peace of mind as far as when you're no longer around, what's going to happen.
But the other thing too is, if you decided that you wanted to have this amount of money going to your son, and what happens if they get divorced, how's that going to affect everything? And you didn't want them to get the spouse to have anything. Those are all things that you have to sit down and understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish.
And we've raised a lot of questions and a lot of scenarios that could happen, throughout this conversation. And I think the best advice I could give to somebody that was asking that type of question is sit down with the professional, ask the question today. This is a really easy conversation to kick. I don't want to deal with it. We'll deal with it later. Well, guess what? We never know what life is going to throw at us. Let's say this couple, they were thinking about this. This is what we want to do. And then the worst happens. They get hit by a bus or something crossing the street. Well, guess what? You don't have it in place yet. So it's important to have these conversations now, as early as possible. Get prepared for it.
And if you don't have a plan, guess what? There is a plan in place for you. It's called the government plan.
And who do you think that benefits the most at the end of the day? We understand.
I'm not going to answer that question, Chris. It's pretty obvious.
I think we all know, yeah. We understand, it's not an easy conversation to have to focus on one's own mortality, but it can avoid a lot of hardship and heartache down the line. I don't think anyone really says, I want to give as much money as possible to the government. Quite the contrary. If you feel so inclined, I haven't actually found it, but I've heard there is a place on the IRS's website where you can make an anonymous donation if you feel like giving more money to them. I haven't looked for it because I have no intention for doing it. I don't think anyone out there is really going to seek it out. But having that estate plan in place, making sure what you want is executed the way you wanted, and make sure that your kids, they get to enjoy the fruits of that. Keep Uncle Sam at bay. Make sure that they get as little as possible. All the different parameters. Perhaps your kids, as this couple wrote in, they need a little bit of protection from themselves, figuring out ways to go about doing that. Perhaps you want all the money to stay with you. You want your last check to the undertaker to bounce. That's a trickier thing to navigate because we don't know, how long we're going to be here on this earth. And so figuring out that math can be difficult, but it still comes down to having a plan. How do you go about doing that? How do you go about enjoying the fruits of your labor? It all starts, to say it time and time again, with having that plan in place, having that roadmap in place, because if there are changes down the line, and being able to say, how do we get back on track? How do we get to where we want to be? The team at Welcome Home Financial Partners, they can help you draw and create that roadmap, maintain that roadmap, and having that plan in place to find out what happens beyond when you reach your destination, and beyond that, how to make sure that your kids get to continue the plan, they get to enjoy it. WelcomeHomeFP.com is how you get started. WelcomeHomeFP.com. Find out more about Ralph, Tim, Scott, the entire team at Welcome Home Financial Partners. Set up a time to speak with them. Find out how to attend their First Friday events if you want to, get to know them in a more informal setting. It's all there for you. It's right there in the podcast description. Click the link. It'll take you right to WelcomeHomeFP.com. want to thank you for joining us on this episode, as we do with every episode. Really do appreciate you spending time with us here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph Short, Tim Short, and Scott Earhart. Hope you have a great day ahead of you. Guys, hope you have a great day ahead of you as well. And as we wrap up, as always, want to leave you with the final word.
Thank you, Chris. So we know this is a difficult conversation. A lot of people don't want to talk about death, but guess what? That's one thing that is guaranteed in life. So if any of this, is striking a chord in you and you're just kind of concerned about what's going to happen with your investments, with your estate, with your money, pick up the phone, give us a call, attend an event. We'd love to see you. We'd love to hear about your situation, see how we can help you out. So once again, thank you for listening and take care.
All content is for information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax or legal advice or provide the basis for any financial decision, nor is it intended to be a projection of current or future performance or indication or future results. Opinions expressed herein are solely those of Welcome Home Financial Partners and Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC. The information contained in this material has been derived from sources believed to be reliable, but is not guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness and does not purport to a complete analysis of the materials discussed. All information and ideas should be discussed in detail with your individual advisor prior to the implementation. Each individual investor's situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstance. Advisor services are offered by Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Virginia. Being registered as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Insurance products and services are offered through WPI Holding, Virginia Insurance License Number 138509, an affiliated company. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell or offer to sell advisory services to any residents of any state other than the state of Virginia or where otherwise legally permitted. Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC and Welcome Home Financial Partners are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency.